Hey, welcome back! About a month ago, the Radix team released Radix Themes. And I was actually pretty excited about this because I really like the Radix library. So I was thinking, at least for small proof of concepts, this is probably the next thing I'm gonna use. Because look at their website, it just looks stunning. Everything is so nice. Everything just works well together, and you can just switch themes by changing some base color and then everything suddenly looks completely different. It's so nice, right? Until I started to work with it. I don't know why they did this. Let me show you what I mean. So I went ahead and created a pretty simple example application using the new themes. What you see here on the right is their theme panel, and with that theme panel and development mode you can at least play around with it and change all of the colors, and that way you can just change the whole appearance of your website. And you can also in the theme provider set your current accent color, and then everything will work from there. But now let's take a look at how they built this. If we, for example, inspect this button, then we see a lot of really complicated selectors. And I mean, why? Why did you do this? This makes it so hard to override everything. And of course, there is CSS variables for most of the things, but if I just want to override one instance, I, for example, want to throw a Tailwind class on there and just call it a day. But if I, for example, now want to change the background color of this button by going to that button, and then we're going to add a class name and let's say background red 300, then it won't work. Simply because this selector down here is way more specific than the selector background red 300. And yes, I know it's pretty meant to use most of what they already give you out of the box and not do too many custom stuff. But I mean, sometimes changing the padding or color, that's something you really have to be able to do. And it's just not possible in Tailwind, at least not if you don't add an important on there. But I hope you've seen my last video, because this is more of a testament to CSS Cascade Layers, because there is a way to improve this Radix themes and make it way more usable. And it's not that much of work. So let's jump right into our main CSS file. What you see here is we import our Radix theme styles, as well as all of our Tailwind default base components and utility classes. So, and how are we going to solve this? We're going to solve that by adding a layer. And in that layer, we are going to add the Tailwind base. And then we're going to add Radix UI. And finally, I want to add Tailwind components as well as utils in just a single layer. And why am I doing this? That is because I want to add the base of Tailwind, which is sort of the reset, to its own layer called TW base. And that just means that the base or the reset has the lowest specificity possible, so the Radix themes styles at least override these resets. But then I want to add the add layer Tailwind components and utils. And I want to add the utilities and components in there. Just again, so this way the utilities are the most important layer, because the only thing that's still missing is also defining our Radix UI layer right where we import it. And then all of a sudden the order of our layers is used, and you see that our red class is suddenly applied. And this then suddenly gives us an option to really easily override these Radix styles without using any important. And this really proved my point I tried to make in the last video, because this shows the power of these CSS Cascade layers. Because if you now take a look in our inspector and we go to our background color, you see that it's in the layer Radix UI and that the color, the background color, is not applied. And if we then scroll up, you see our background red 300 class, which still in specificity, at least the class on its own, is not as high of specificity as the other selector. But because we have added it to a layer that's higher in the order, as you can see in our code, it suddenly overrides anything the Radix UI has set. And that way you can use Radix themes for anything you like, but still be able to tweak small things here and there without needing to use any ugly inline styles, overriding CSS variables for one place. You just throw on a Tailwind class and everything works. So even though I still don't understand why they write their classes in such a way instead of using utility classes everywhere, luckily, because there is a new CSS feature that has been rolled out in pretty much all browsers, there is finally a solution to make this work. Finally, I want to make one small note, and that is for the usage of add layer in Tailwind, because Tailwind kind of reserves the base components and utilities add layer, but they're not really the CSS Cascade Layers. They use something to, on build, already compile everything away, and these layers won't stay in the code. So that's why I needed to come up with different names, in this case prefix with TW, so at least they stay in the code and the code is rendered in the correct layer. Because otherwise Tailwind would just strip them out and it wouldn't be applied at all. But that's all I have for you today. I really hope that this very small snippet again showed you the power of CSS Cascade Layers and makes you just as excited about it as I am. If Radix Themes is worth using, I don't know. I guess for very simple apps, definitely. But to me, having the ability to make your components look exactly the way I want it is part of my craft. And I don't want any library to be put in my way. But that probably means that Radix Themes just is not for me, but there is probably a lot of other users out there that really value Radix Themes. And I hope that this edition actually makes it way easier to use for you as well. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel because there is way more great content coming. And also definitely check out the Frontend FYI website because there's so many great videos also in the form of articles there and a lot of live playgrounds too. Finally, don't forget to check out Frontend FYI Pro because soon there will be some really nice releases as part of that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.